lot of shoveling.
First of all, it was shoveling, but it was a ton of fun because, you know, we had a couple of Goldens and the kids were little and it was just fun. And it was in a cul-de-sac, so everybody was out, you know, playing and shoveling, but it was a ton of snow. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Maggie was a snow girl, though. She loved getting in her little
snow.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, God. I'm like, give me a beach.
It's all I knew. It's all I knew.
Yeah. I'm ready for a beach vacation now. I'm like, it's just too cold. I'm ready to. And I hate the cold, rainy, wet days. Oh gosh, that's just.
Do you get a lot of that where you are in Georgia?
Well, you know, in Atlanta, you have November, December. It's kind of like a rainy season. You know, it's cold and rainy and dreary. I'm like, oh, I don't mind the cold, sunny days, but I don't like the cold, rainy days. And my poor dog, oh my God, she's 8 months, and getting her to go out in this rain. Oh, I have to watch her on that, and she's still a little puppy, so watching her get through that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone coming on.
Welcome
to our Facebook Live today on Thursday. Hello from Madison. We have Terrell on today talking about things to do or talk about before you say I do. Very exciting. We'll wait for a couple people to jump on here and then we can get started.
Yeah, I think this is such an important topic, Terrell, because as they say, so many couples take so much time planning the wedding or the honeymoon and they don't even have these conversations, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. They don't have the conversation. It's really scary because it's almost a waste. I actually had a girlfriend who she got married. I flew out of town. I sang in her wedding.
Oh,
it was huge wedding. Oh gosh, her parents went all out, and the marriage lasts, I think, 6 weeks. She ended up doing an annulment, and it was so sad. That, they were, long distance for a while, and she discovered some things when she moved to another state that she decided, this is not going to work. So,
oh my gosh.
Sad, but it's important to talk about money before you walk down the aisle. It really is so important.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a hard conversation for some, though, because they never really talked about money before.
Mm-hmm.
So really learning kind of the skills, how to open that conversation so that it's just generally a good conversation. It's not judging, it's not combative, all of that.
I think people are, money is such a taboo topic.
Mm-hmm.
People, it really is a taboo topic. It's almost like, you want to talk about sex and people, money, but it's almost like this taboo topic, and people feel like if I ask, I may be prying or I may be asking too much, but it's important. It really is important. But it's especially in households and when you grow up, and it may be that you grew up in a household where your family didn't have really good financial skills, because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So especially young kids, they grow up in a household where, they watch their parents. It may be that they watch their parents argue about money. So when they decide to walk down the aisle, it may be, I don't even want to talk about it because I've watched my parents for years argue about money. So they avoid it like the plague.
Yeah, because money equals argument, where it should really equal other things like, empowerment, togetherness, and goals. And so I totally get it. And what I love about this arena is we can record it here, and then anyone can go listen to it later. So it's great that if people are here, or if they have friends that they think they need to share this with or learn about this, but they're not able to attend right now today, they can pick this up later, and then we'll also have the step-by-step document.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I absolutely love that. I frequently go back and listen to our presentations at my convenience when I'm sitting on the couch and go back and just listen. Especially, like I said, the topics you had the other day.
Yeah, great. How are we doing,
let me give an introduction to Terrell, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
So Terrell is president and founder of OBN Wealth Advisors, an independent registered investment advisor firm that focuses on wealth building strategies for women. As an investment advisor, Terrell creates financial roadmaps to help her clients navigate their finances now and into the future. With more than a decade of experience in the financial services industry, Terrell is still very passionate about her work. But when she's not in business mode, she's spending time with her husbands, her two teens, and your fur baby, Oxney?
Is Onyx.
Onyx. And she loves volunteering through her membership of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority.
Yeah.
So, Terrell, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. You know, I got to do a shameless plug right now. Our new vice president, Madam VP, Kamala Harris, is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. So I wanted to put that shameless plug out there. So I'm really excited about this topic, the 5 financial musts before saying I do. You know, it's really important. And we were just saying how, you know, money is a taboo topic, but it shouldn't be a taboo topic. People should talk about money and shouldn't be afraid to talk about money before they make this huge commitment in their life, because it really is a commitment. It should be a lifelong commitment. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but we go into marriage thinking that this is going to be something that I do for life. So it's important that you have the money conversation. So before I get into these 5 financial musts, 5 financial considerations before saying I do, I want to just share with you how I got here. So next slide, please. So let me just kind of give you a little banking story. When I graduated from college, I worked for, it was first Atlanta, then Wachovia, then Wells Fargo. So I was a banking loan officer and operations manager for the banking institution. And one of the things, and I think at that point, I realized that I will probably end up being an advocate for women. So one day in the bank, and it wasn't just one day, this woman frequently came into the bank and she had her little kids with her. She was married to a pilot. You know, they were wealthy. But one day she came to my desk and asked me if I could help her balance her checkbook. Now, saying balancing your checkbook ages this whole story a bit, but at that time, people balanced their checkbook. They had the ledgers and they were balancing their checkbooks. But it was that moment that I realized that I would never put myself in a situation where I didn't have a seat at the table. I wasn't involved in the household finances. And here we were, you know, this woman with small kids, and she was going to go through a divorce, and she didn't know how to balance a checkbook. It was a sad situation, but that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me, a turning point in my life, that I knew that I always wanted to be financially empowered as a woman. So we fast forward to me going into this industry as a financial advisor. I worked at this firm. I was the only female advisor there. You know, all the advisors were senior men, and I was the only woman there. And so in order for me to, you know, grow my practice, I had these women and wealth events at the office where we had a little bit of wine, but we talked about different money topics. And one of the senior advisors, he said to me, he said, Terrell, you can't save the world. You cannot save the world. So you're not going to be able to grow your practice if you try to save the world. But it was that moment that I realized, and of course, what he really meant was I can't help every woman, because most of the people that were coming to see me were women. It was women that was raising their hands saying, hey, Terrell, I need help. And I realized then that women were born with what I call a blessing and a curse. The blessing is we will probably outlive our male counterparts. And the curse is we will probably outlive our male counterparts. So it was important as a woman, as a female advisor, that I do something to empower women. Next slide, please. And so that was the beginning of me knowing that I would be an advocate for women. So I wrote my first book. That was back in 2015. I wrote this book called One Bucket at a Time, A Woman's Guide to Creating Wealth. And it was a way for women to say, hey, I need to make sure that I put my money in order because I may be the last one on this earth. It's that whole blessing and a curse situation where women may end up being alone. That was also when we think about women and why it's so important for us to get our finances in order is because a lot of us will go through divorce. And so that also pushed me to go out and become a certified divorce financial analyst, to be an advocate, in some cases neutrals, but an advocate, particularly for women who are going through a divorce situation because they may end up doing this alone. And then one day, my 18-year-old wise son, he came to me and he said, Mom, he said, you and Daddy have been married for over 20 years. And he said, why are you, helping people with their divorce situation? And I explained to him that, people go through a divorce and they're going to need some financial assistance. And he said, well, why don't you consider helping people before they get married with their finances so that they don't end up in a divorce because of money? This guy, 18, a wise 18-year-old young man, was the reason why I decided that in addition to being an advocate for people that were going through a divorce, but I would also be a financial advocate before you walk down the aisle. And so that was one of the things that pushed me into really doing the premarital financial counseling. So let's go to the next slide. So one of the best ways to deal with financial stresses in a marriage is communication and honesty, and conveying your expectations, your hopes, your goals, and anxieties. Because think about it. Money can kill a marriage just as much as infidelity. Think about it. The green dollar can cause you to end up in a divorce because you don't have the conversations, you don't have a discussion, you don't discuss the anxieties that you have about money. We earlier, but right before we got on, we were talking about how sometimes you grow up in a household and talking about money is taboo. You may grow up in a household where your parents argued about money and they never pulled the children to the table to have a money discussion. So that's your norm. As you grow up, you see that if you talk about money, it leads to an argument. So when you make the decision to walk down the aisle, you don't have the money conversation. So let's hop into the 5 financial musts before you say I do. The number one thing you should do before you walk down that aisle is to deal with your debt. Deal with your financial house. Deal with your stuff, your baggage, your money baggage. And one way to do that is pull your credit report. In October, I wrote another book about the secrets of people that have these 800 credit scores. And in my book, I, really do a deep dive about people and young couples in particular about that have student loan debt. But dealing with your debt is so important. And what's more important about that is when you're dating someone, you need to have what I call open, honest, non-judgmental discussions about possible spending habits that may not be positive spending habits. Just recently, and just kind of going back to the student loan debt, just yesterday, I was working with a client and, she left Atlanta and she moved to another state and she wanted me to look through her finances. And, she had, done a great job saving. And she said to me that she and her fiance have decided to get a prenuptial agreement, which leads to the consideration number 2. If you decide to walk down the aisle, consider getting a prenuptial agreement. So when we think about marriage, it really is a contract. And that sounds almost cold when you think about it, that I'm getting married, but it's a contract. Well, marriage is true. And in the situation with my client, I thought it was important that she and her fiance both agreed that getting a prenuptial agreement was particularly important, especially in her case. She's going into the marriage and she has her ducks in a row. She's accumulated quite a bit of assets, and he still has student loan debt. And believe it or not, some people will carry student loan debt all the way up and through retirement. So depending on the type of student loan debt that you have, you may even want to consider whether you consolidate that student loan debt as a single person and as a married person. Because if you decide to consolidate your student loan debt as a married couple, it could very well end up being an issue for the couple and not that single person. So get a prenuptial agreement is pretty a smart move. Also, a prenuptial agreement is important for people that may have gone through this may be their second marriage down the aisle. So with a prenuptial agreement, it allows you to protect your assets. It allows you to look out for the best interest of your children that you may have had prior to this second marriage. So there is nothing bad about a prenuptial agreement. It protects you because marriage is a contract, and unfortunately that contract can be broken. When we look at the statistics of divorce in this country, you're not going to be surprised when I say that 42 to 45% of first marriages end in divorce. And once people get a divorce the first time, they have no problems getting a divorce the second time, because the statistics show that there's a 60% chance that you will get a second divorce. And that number gets higher for people that are going through marrying for the third time. So there's a 73% chance that if you get married a third time, that marriage will end up in a divorce. My husband has a friend. He's a very, very nice guy, but he is not going to give up on marriage. He's gone. I think he's on marriage number 4. And his thing is he's just not going to give up on love, which leads us to financial consideration number 3. Know your financial personality. I love this picture because when you look at it, it has a face with all of these colors. And, we were talking about feng shui earlier and how red represents energy. But when we look at your financial personalities, there are a lot of different personalities when it comes to money. You may be a saver, and your partner or future spouse may be a spender. That saver could be categorized as a cheapskate, and the spender may like to, create big pictures and shop a lot. So when you're dating, you want to pay attention to the signs of whether your mate is a spender or a saver and how they deal with money. That's really a huge conversation that you need to have about how you feel about money. Your anxieties associated with money, your anxieties, your feelings associated with a lot of spending. Personally speaking, I am a saver, and I probably, during my dating period, if I had seen that my fiance was a big flashy spender, I know I probably would not have been able to say I do. I would have said I can't, I won't. I couldn't say I do if I saw that, because I have always been a planner. And I always knew that I knew what I wanted my future to look like. And if I married a person who was a huge spender, I knew that it would probably be a bleak financial future for us as a couple. So when you're dating it, you need to pay attention to signs of whether that person is a saver or a spender, and if you will feel comfortable living with the personality type that is opposite of you. You know, they say opposites attract, but sometimes opposites are also detrimental and it may not be good for you. Which leads us to number 4. And this is a big one. This is a huge one because this is something that's going to change over the life of your marriage. You really need to discuss a fair and equitable way to pay household expenses. And think about this. I didn't say equal. I said equitable way to pay your household expenses. So, you know, if everything was equal, it wouldn't be a marriage. You would just have a roommate. So you have to be fair and have these discussions about what's going to be fair with each person in the marriage. And in this situation, you've got to leave the egos outside of the door. You have to leave the egos outside of the marriage, because you don't want to be in a situation where your spouse brings home all of the bacon. They're making all of the money and they're dictating to you how things are going to be, and you have no voice. In my first book, I have a chapter in that book, and it's called A Man Is Not a Plan. And that's because the book was dedicated back to women. And even in your household, you need to have a financial voice in your household. You need to have a discussion about how you want the spending, how you want the expenses spent, because in your marriage, things are going to change. I've been married over 20 years, and in our 20-year marriage, we've lost jobs. Our incomes have gone up. Our incomes have gone down. We made the decisions to go back to school. We've gotten our master's degrees. So things are going to change in your marriage, and it's not going to always be equal. You know, I think an equal situation is a roommate, and you went into this contract called marriage. So it's equitable. It's not equal. You know, you may have situations where your household income is $100,000. He's bringing in 60, you're bringing in 40. So you may make a decision to do a 60-40 split when it comes to the expenses. But that's a discussion that you need to have in advance, because it's not fair if the rules change in the middle of the game. And that's what you don't want to have, the rules changing, and you feel, you know, like you don't have a voice, like you don't have any say so. And that's what you don't want, because that you not having a say so in your household finances takes away your power. It reminds me of the woman that walked in the bank and she was lost. Apparently, she never took interest or had a seat at the table when it came to her household finances, and she was starting from scratch. So have that discussion about what's going to be equitable for your household. Number 5, the next thing you should consider, and this is also something big, especially for people that have gone through second marriages, but address family matters. What do I mean by addressing family matters? Okay, I'll say something that's funny. Baby mama drama. You're paying your parents' bills. Your brother's constantly calling you and asking you for money. So there needs to be some rules when it comes to addressing family matters in your household. How are you going to handle a situation if you are constantly writing a checks taking out of your household and you know it's going into another household? When I was working with this client, one of her blind items in her budget was paying her mother's taxes. So I'm sure in her situation, she and her fiance had a discussion about her paying these taxes. So when it comes to family matters, because every situation is different, there's no one way or there's no right answer for this, except for the fact that it should be addressed, that you should create some rules on what are we going to do if that's the situation? What are we going to do? How will child support impact our household? And discuss that beforehand, because money will ruin your marriage. Money can cause you to shred this contract that you went into. And drama with, outside children, money going out of the household. Then, children are a beautiful thing, but that can be, I've heard situations where people, the ex-spouse took the person back to court because there was money coming in the household and they wanted more money. That can put a strain on a marriage. You writing checks because your brother can't get his household together, that can be a strain on a marriage. So in summarizing, I want to just kind of walk back through those again. The 5 things you need to consider: handling your debt, making sure you can handle your debt, consider a prenuptial agreement, know your financial personality, discuss fair and equitable ways to pay your household finances, and deal with these family matters. Because when we think about matters of the heart, and I think marriage is a matter of the heart, communication, honesty, expectations are key in preventing money being a stressor in your marriage. I thank you so much for listening in. And if you want to contact me, Maggie and Barbara will put that information out there. So, if you have any questions, I would love to answer them for you.
Wow, that was great. Wow, I wish all women could hear this. So we need to share this information with our friends, our sisters, whoever we know who's venturing into the marriage soon. Max, what kind of questions do we have?
We're gonna wait for someone to come in. It looks like some people are typing. But this is great information to have, and a lot of people would argue that they're hard conversations, but they're definitely necessary. I mean, if you're going to be living your whole life with that person.
They are hard, very difficult conversations. Like I said, money is taboo. People don't like talking about money.
Yeah. It's funny because on some of these topics, oftentimes we, don't put enough emphasis into what's happening before our very eyes. For instance, if you're with somebody who's doing a lot of spending and you're the saver, you might just be like, yeah, but when we get married, we're gonna blah blah blah, and they emotionally make it sound okay. And I had a friend say to me, sometimes when we see red flags, they become billboards after we get married. And I think it's such a great thing to think about, because we emotionally are so invested that we don't look at it from a logical point of view and really have those like critical conversations on all of these topics.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and we, just like anything, it's like when you want to buy that upgraded car, right? Emotionally, you really love all those great big whistles and features on it, but financially, so you buy it emotionally, and then financially you figure out a way to pay for it, which is really hard to do. It's just not a way to approach it. And I think that happens with marriages, that you accommodate or you put up with things that you say, can be really deteriorating if you're not don't have the same game plan.
No, I absolutely, Barbara, that is such a tweetable, as Oprah would say, a tweetable moment when you see red flags. They become billboards when you get married. I love that. I'm going to tweet that.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's important because we want to look the other way, but these are really, really critical conversations you need to have, because with the divorce rate so high, and money is such a critical factor.
Mm-hmm. I know, in the 10 plus years that I've been in this industry, I can almost see when a woman walks in my office, because most of my clients were women, when she's going through this nesting stage, and I call it nesting because you can tell she's getting herself in order because something is about to happen. And unfortunately, I've witnessed three or four of my clients go through a divorce, and it's sad. They come in and they're, asking questions, trying to put their households in order, but to see, meeting them for the first time with their spouse and then seeing the divorce, it really is sad. It really is.
Yeah.
We do have a question here, and that's how do you go about, or who do you go to get a prenup?
Oh, an attorney. You would, use an attorney. Yeah, you would use an attorney to get a prenuptial agreement. I would definitely, especially if you have a lot of assets, I would definitely get an involved. I'm sure there's something out there that you can do on your own, but I would definitely, depending on my assets, reach out to an attorney, a divorce attorney, to get a prenuptial agreement.
All right, awesome.
The other thing I want to mention is the whole idea of student loans. I was listening to this podcast, Death, Sex, and Money. I'm sure you may have heard about it. And this goes to your piece on family lending. One was this couple, one of them came to the marriage with such big student loans that it really impeded their ability to buy a house.
Yeah.
To move forward and do the things in their lives that they wanted to do as couples, because they have this huge nut that followed them around the whole time. And so that was really detrimental. And another story was that this woman borrowed money from her parents. Okay, so get this. So her parents said when they retired, they wanted that money back for their retirement.
Oh, wow.
Well, that was kind of the promise, like you say, with the whole money situation with the family, which is like, I never really thought about that. But her parents were retiring and they wanted the money back. And she felt, first of all, she couldn't really afford to pay them. And anytime she bought something for herself, they would be like, oh, you bought yourself a toaster oven and you can't pay us the money back. I mean, it was so stressful.
Oh, wow. Student loans are, oh my God, they're huge. I really go deep in that because I talk in my book, I really cover how we can kind of prevent the student loans, how the things that you can do so that you can prevent from having them. I mean, it's one lady said to me that she came out of college with over $100,000, and that's not unusual to have $100,000 in student loan debts. It's not. But she said, and this was because she grew up in a situation where they didn't have healthy money conversations. Her mom said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll worry about that later." And she said it was sad that that's how she grew up, and it was no big deal because her mother, it wasn't a healthy money situation, and she ended up having $100,000 in student loan debt. And one time I actually did a social media post where I just said, if you could change one financial situation, what would it be? So many people talked about their student loans because it has held them back from building wealth. Think about it. If you're paying Sally Mae $500, almost $1,000 a month, that could go towards your house.
It's a hard decision when you're like 18 and that's what everyone's doing, and you think, oh, I can make that money and make it up. You don't know all the other expenses, even though if you think you do in the house, like there's more expenses than I ever thought there would be. And so you're just like, oh, this is going to be harder than I planned.
Right. I have a son who's a sophomore in college, and I'm really, and I feel like I have an advantage because of what I do. But I really told him, let's have a discussion about what your life will look like after you graduate. And let's try to figure out how we can come out of school with as little debt as possible. So it was a conversation that we had. I talk about money. Oh gosh, they get tired of me talking about it. But it's important, it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah.
More people need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Definitely. It doesn't seem like we have too many questions coming in. People are agreeing that a prenup is a very, very important to go about.
Prenup, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and Terrell, who would you have some great topics that they need to discuss with. What if they need some help with working through those conversations?
You know what, you can actually, there are coaches, and I wouldn't consider myself a money coach. Now I do premarital financial planning where we talk about the money situation. But then there may be people where the issues are deeper than just sitting down and talking about the finances. And that's when you can actually have a coach. You can hire a mediator. You can get a counselor. So there are actual people out there that are counselors that you can hire if the topics are deeper. In my situation, I do work with couples and we sit down and we map out and talk about goal planning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what happens. So that may be their first time having conversations about money when they sit down and talk to me. And then it's kind of for the first time you hear someone else say something that you weren't really aware of. So, and I normally say, let me hear your side. And the spouse or the partner gets to hear for the first time how this other person feels about this topic on money. Wow. And it's so important because it may be a situation where you're like, I don't know if I can live with that.
Yeah.
And in my situation, I know that because I am a saver, I didn't grow up with money. You know, my father passed at the age of 36. So my mom had to raise three of us. She was a widow at 34. So wow. I didn't grow up with money. And, but my mother was a great saver. She always said, she was single, raising three kids, but she was a widow of raising three kids. And she always, push the importance of saving, because she said women, she even said that, you may end up being alone. And of course she was alone. She was a widow at 34. So she really stressed the importance of women saving their money because they may end up being on this earth alone.
Yeah. And look at you now. That's what you learned.
I know. That's right.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing and such valuable information. And as everyone knows, this is being recorded. So we're going to promote it and have women go look at the recording. And then we're also going to create the step-by-step. So Meg, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we'll create a step-by-step that has all 5 of these takeaways on it and some next steps to do, as well as Terrell's information if you'd like to contact her. Yeah, these are all really great conversations to have, and especially if you're going to be living with someone forever. So thank you again, Terrell, for coming today. You can find Terrell at OBN Financial. She also has a page on our Purse Strings website that you can check out. And yeah, we're definitely going to have you back on soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this. This was great. Great conversation. Great topic.
Yeah, it is. It was great. So important. All right. Thank you, Terrell.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.